Have you ever paused to wonder how many famous faces have quietly stepped into the world of cosmetic transformation? And among them, how many later look back and question that choice? In the glittering universe of Hollywood, where youth, glamour, and flawless images seem to rule every spotlight, the pressure to remain visually perfect can feel almost impossible to escape. Yet behind the red carpets and flashing cameras, even the most self-assured stars sometimes find themselves confronting a surprising truth. The mirror can become a place of reflection not only for appearance, but for the deeper journey of identity and self-acceptance. In today's episode, we take a closer look at the journeys of several stars whose pursuit of beauty slowly turned into an all-consuming quest, revealing how the search for perfection can sometimes lead people down unexpected and challenging paths. Their stories offer a thoughtful glimpse into the pressures of fame and the powerful influence of image in the spotlight. Share your thoughts in the comments. Type 1 if you feel a sense of understanding for these experiences, or 0 if you see it differently. And if you enjoy exploring the surprising stories behind celebrity transformations across the decades, be sure to like the video and subscribe so you won't miss the next fascinating chapter. For centuries, Spain's legendary House of Alba has stood as a powerful emblem of heritage, prestige, and enduring influence. Known for its remarkable wealth and deep connections to society and public life, the family has long occupied a unique place in European history. Yet among its many distinguished members, one figure drew global fascination more than any other: Maria del Rosario Cayetana Fitz-James Stuart y Silva, the 18th Duchess of Alba. Celebrated for her vibrant personality and extraordinary fortune, she became a captivating presence in high society. Her life reflected a rare blend of centuries-old aristocratic tradition and a boldly individual spirit that made her story impossible to ignore. Cayetana Fitz-James Stuart was renowned not only for holding an extraordinary number of noble titles, often described as the most of any individual in the world, but also for the way she blended centuries-old aristocratic tradition with a distinctly personal and unconventional way of life. Over the course of her lifetime, she carried more than 40 historic titles, many of them among the most prestigious honors in Spain and across Europe. These distinctions placed her at the center of one of the continent's most remarkable noble legacies, while her vibrant personality allowed her to stand out as a memorable and influential figure within modern high society. She seemed to possess every privilege wealth could offer, yet like everyone else, she could not pause the quiet passage of time. In the 1980s, when much of Europe admired her elegance and striking sense of style, Cayetana Fitz-James Stuart began confronting a deeply personal challenge: the inevitability of aging. Though her natural charm and classic beauty were widely recognized, the changing reflection in the mirror stirred a growing unease. In worlds where image and appearance often carry great weight, even the smallest signs of time can feel magnified. As those first subtle lines appeared, she gradually sought guidance from a series of cosmetic specialists, hoping to preserve the radiant image that had long defined her presence in high society. Cayetana began with what was described as a modest cosmetic adjustment, hoping to subtly refresh her appearance. Over time, the journey expanded to include various aesthetic procedures designed to smooth, refine, and preserve the youthful elegance for which she had long been admired. Like many figures living under the constant gaze of society and cameras, she believed these changes would help maintain the radiant image that had become part of her public identity. Yet in circles where beauty standards can feel endlessly demanding, one step often leads to another. Gradually, her story came to represent the powerful cultural fascination with timeless youth and the enduring quest to hold on to a flawless image in an ever-watchful world. Each procedure carried the promise of preserving a timeless glow, yet with time, the changes gradually moved her further away from the natural charm that had once defined her presence. What had once been a regal and graceful look slowly evolved into an appearance that many observers described as unusually rigid and unfamiliar. As the years passed, another challenge emerged when she was diagnosed with Melkersson-Rosenthal syndrome, a rare condition associated with recurring facial swelling. Hoping to manage these visible changes, she turned again to additional corrective treatments. Yet the results were complex, and her story became a widely discussed reminder of how the pursuit of outward perfection can sometimes lead to unexpected and difficult outcomes. Over time, the natural softness of her skin seemed to fade, and her expressions appeared more restrained than before. The delicate features that had once defined her youthful elegance gradually became harder to recognize after years of aesthetic adjustments. Yet through all the public attention and speculation, the Duchess remained remarkably spirited and independent. In 2011, at the age of 85, she surprised the world by marrying a man 24 years younger than her. The celebration quickly captured international headlines not only for its unexpected romance, but also because her dramatically transformed appearance had become a subject of global curiosity and conversation. Some praised her fearless determination to live according to her own rhythm, while others openly questioned the visible transformations that had become part of her public image. Cayetana Fitzjames Stewart passed away in 2014, leaving behind magnificent estates, historic palaces, and a legacy woven deeply into Spain's aristocratic history. Yet beyond the titles and treasures, her life tells a more reflective story, one that quietly reminds us that no fortune, no lineage, and no spotlight can purchase the most precious currencies of all: the steady flow of time, the freshness of youth, or the calm strength of inner peace. In the 1990s, Linda Evangelista was more than simply a supermodel. She was one of the defining faces of an entire fashion era. Her image appeared on more than 700 magazine covers, helping shape a period remembered for bold elegance, confidence, and the magnetic allure of high fashion. Linda Evangelista quickly became a true icon within the industry, celebrated for her striking features and unmistakable presence. Yet admiration for her went far beyond appearance. She was equally respected for her discipline, professionalism, and remarkable ability to adapt to every creative challenge. From runway shows to advertising campaigns and dazzling red carpet moments, Linda's name carried extraordinary influence, capturing global attention and leaving an unforgettable mark on the world of fashion. Known for her radiant smile, bright eyes, and signature voluminous hair, Linda Evangelista became one of the pioneering figures of a new generation of supermodels who reshaped the fashion world. From major advertising campaigns to the covers of the industry's most prestigious magazines, Linda was far more than a recognizable face for global brands. She represented ambition, creativity, and the evolving spirit of high fashion. With unmistakable confidence and a commanding presence, she rose beyond the role of a typical runway star. In many ways, Linda became a living emblem of the 1990s itself, closely associated with what many remember as a golden era of elegance, bold style, and transformative fashion culture. But behind that flawless public image was a chapter that would later reshape Linda Evangelista's life in an unexpected way. In 2015, she chose to try cool sculpting, a widely discussed cosmetic treatment designed to reduce stubborn fat through controlled cooling, without surgery or long recovery periods. At the time, the procedure was promoted as a modern, convenient option and had gained popularity among many public figures. For Linda, it initially seemed like a routine decision in a world where appearance is constantly under scrutiny. Yet what was expected to be a simple aesthetic step soon unfolded into a deeply challenging experience that few could have predicted. After 7 treatment sessions, the areas that had been targeted did not respond as expected. Instead of gradually diminishing, the tissue began to firm, swell, and develop unusual contours. Over time, changes became noticeable in several parts of her body, altering the balanced silhouette she had long been known for. Medical specialists later identified the condition as paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, a rare reaction reported in only a very small percentage of cases. For Linda, that unlikely outcome became a turning point. What had begun as a routine cosmetic experiment evolved into a deeply personal challenge, reminding many observers that even widely accepted beauty technologies can sometimes produce results no one anticipates. After 7 treatment sessions, the targeted areas did not respond in the way many had expected. Instead of gradually diminishing, the tissue began to firm and swell, creating visible changes in her natural contours. Over time, shifts in her chin, thighs, and chest altered the balanced silhouette that had once defined her public image. Medical specialists later identified the condition as paradoxical adipose hyperplasia, a rare reaction reported in only a very small fraction of cases. For Linda, that unlikely statistic became a life-changing moment, not only transforming her appearance but also interrupting the career that had once placed her at the very center of the fashion world, forcing her to confront a dramatic and unfamiliar chapter of her personal journey. In an effort to restore balance to her appearance, she underwent 2 corrective procedures in 2016 and 2017. Despite these attempts, the results proved difficult to fully reverse. The physical discomfort was significant, but the emotional weight of the experience was even heavier. The same woman who had once become famous for confidently declaring that she wouldn't rise from bed for less than $10,000 a day later spoke with striking honesty about how deeply the experience had affected her. Feeling vulnerable and overwhelmed, she stepped away from public life for several years, distancing herself from camera lenses, runway lights, and even the close circles that had once surrounded her in the height of her career. The face that once defined an era of fashion seemed to vanish from the spotlight for a time. Yet in recent years, Linda has stepped back into the public eye with remarkable courage, appearing once again before the camera with a spirit that blends confidence and openness. Rather than hiding her experience, she now speaks candidly about the challenges she endured, hoping to spark thoughtful conversations about the pressures of appearance and the importance of self-acceptance. Once celebrated as a symbol of flawless glamour, Linda Evangelista has evolved into something equally powerful, a voice for resilience, honesty, and the quiet strength that comes from embracing life's unexpected chapters. During the 1970s and 1980s, Joan Van Ark stood among the most recognizable and admired faces on television. Her portrayal of Valine Ewing in Knots Landing helped transform her into a familiar and cherished figure in the entertainment world. With her soft features, expressive eyes, and warm smile, she reflected the timeless image of classic Hollywood elegance that audiences loved. Joan was celebrated not only for her acting ability but also for the natural charm that made her presence feel authentic and memorable on screen. Yet, as the years passed and the spotlight continued to follow her, that very image, once admired by millions, slowly became the focus of an increasingly personal struggle with appearance and the expectations that often come with fame. In the early 1990s, Joan Van Ark chose to undergo her first cosmetic nose procedure, a small adjustment that many observers initially considered barely noticeable. Yet that modest step gradually opened the door to a longer journey of aesthetic treatments. Over the years, she explored a range of procedures, including facelifts, eyelid refinements, Botox injections, and skin treatments, all intended to preserve a youthful and refreshed appearance in an industry where image often carries great weight. While these choices reflected a desire to keep pace with the demanding spotlight of entertainment, they also brought visible changes that slowly moved her away from the natural look that had once distinguished her among television's most admired stars. Whenever she noticed another quiet sign of time passing, Joan often sought new ways to preserve the youthful image that had once defined her career. Over the years, those efforts gradually changed the familiar look audiences remembered so well. The smooth, glowing features that once lit up television screens began to appear tighter and more restrained, and subtle expressions became harder to recognize. As camera technology evolved and high-definition lenses captured every detail, even the smallest changes became visible to viewers everywhere. By the early 2000s, discussions about her evolving appearance frequently appeared in entertainment headlines, with many people wondering how the beloved star they remembered had changed so dramatically. While Joan herself maintained that she simply wanted to care for her appearance, the conversation surrounding her story continued to grow. If this story encourages you to think about the choices people make in the pursuit of beauty and the complex pressures behind them, share your perspective in the comments. Type 1 if you feel understanding toward these experiences, or 0 if you see things differently. And if you enjoy exploring the fascinating journeys and transformations of celebrities across the decades, remember to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Over the years, repeated cosmetic adjustments seemed to change more than just Joan van Arc's appearance. They gradually softened the familiar warmth that had once been central to her charm. The continuous effort to maintain a flawless image under the constant gaze of the public slowly shifted the natural elegance that audiences had long admired. By the time the 40th anniversary celebration of Knots Landing arrived in 2020, many longtime fans were surprised by how different she appeared. Beneath the bright stage lights, her face reflected the long journey of trying to preserve perfection in an industry where time rarely stands still, an experience that, for many observers, became a thoughtful reminder of the pressures that often accompany life in the spotlight. Today, Joan van Arc lives a quieter life, occasionally appearing at charity events and special gatherings. Though public discussions about her changing appearance have followed her for years, she continues to take pride in the legacy she built and the connection she formed with generations of viewers, especially through her lasting contributions to television. Her journey offers a reflective lesson about the powerful expectations placed on those who live in the spotlight. In many ways, it reminds us that time moves forward for everyone, and that true beauty is often found not in resisting it, but in embracing life's natural rhythm with dignity and grace. For more than 6 decades, Kenny Rogers stood as a true American icon. With his warm voice and thoughtful gaze, he captured the hearts of millions through timeless songs such as The Gambler and Islands in the Stream. His presence reflected the image of a sincere, grounded storyteller whose music spoke to everyday life and quiet resilience. Yet as the years passed and the spotlight continued to follow him, the realities of aging in front of cameras brought new pressures. In the 1990s, facing those expectations and the constant attention that comes with fame, Rogers made a personal decision about his appearance, one that would later reshape how many people saw him in the public eye. As the years went by, the legendary country singer began to sense the quiet pressure of an industry often captivated by youth and flawless appearances. Even with enduring classics like The Gambler and Islands in the Stream continuing to resonate with audiences, the passage of time remained an unavoidable reality. Bright television lights and countless press photographs served as constant reminders that every era eventually changes. Kenny, a performer who had always guided his career with confidence and determination, found himself reflecting on how the entertainment world was evolving, one where image, youth, and visual reinvention often seemed to carry as much attention as the music itself. As the subtle signs of aging began to appear, it became clear that time moves forward for everyone, no matter how celebrated they may be. Drawn by the promise of maintaining a youthful image and staying visually fresh in the public eye, he eventually explored cosmetic procedures. The journey began with a facelift intended to refresh his appearance, followed later by eyelid surgery designed to soften the visible marks of time. Yet the outcome did not unfold quite as he had imagined. Rather than simply restoring a familiar look, the changes altered his features enough that many longtime fans felt surprised by how different the beloved singer appeared. The expressive, sharply defined face that audiences had admired for decades appeared noticeably different. His features seemed tighter than before, and certain details like the heightened curve of his eyebrows and a look that many interpreted as constant surprise gave him an unfamiliar expression. For longtime fans, The change felt striking because it contrasted with the relaxed warmth they had associated with him throughout his career. The transformation quickly became a topic of conversation in the media, sparking broader discussions about the pressures of image in the entertainment world and the complicated relationship between fame, aging, and the pursuit of maintaining a familiar public identity. Many fans reacted with surprise as conversations about Kenny Rogers' changing appearance began to circulate widely. Comments from audiences and media outlets often reflected a sense of shock, with some people saying he looked very different from the familiar face they had known for decades. For those who had followed his long career, the transformation made it difficult at first to reconcile the new look with the beloved music legend whose songs had shaped so many memories. Behind the success and the bright lights of fame, Rogers quietly navigated a deeply personal moment of reflection, confronting the emotional weight that sometimes accompanies decisions made in the public eye. Over time, his experience became part of a broader conversation about expectations, image, and the complex relationship between identity and change. Many years later, Kenny Rogers spoke openly about the experience, reflecting with honesty on the choices he had made. In interviews, he admitted that he had hoped only to look a little younger, but the outcome left him feeling that something essential about his familiar image had changed. His words revealed not just disappointment about appearance, but also the deeper emotional weight that can accompany such decisions. Rather than bringing the sense of renewal he had expected, the experience led him to reflect on how closely identity, confidence, and self-perception are connected. In sharing his thoughts publicly, Rogers offered a thoughtful reminder that the search for perfection can sometimes lead people to reconsider what truly matters most. Although the visible traces of that chapter gradually softened with time, the emotional reflections stayed with him. Yet one thing never faded: his music, the gift that had always connected him to millions of listeners. Kenny Rogers continued to perform, record, and share stories through song well into the later years of his life, remaining close to the fans who had supported him for decades. When he passed away in 2020 at the age of 81, he left behind not only a remarkable catalog of music, but also the wisdom of a life fully lived. In many ways, his journey reminded people that while no one can pause the passage of time, the legacy created through passion, creativity, and connection can endure far beyond it.